What's up, people? Welcome back. Well, I thought I would do another comments corner based on the Ubuntu 14.04 since the new poll is up. Quickly, the new poll is: do you like Windows 8.1? You can vote yes, no, prefer Chromebook, prefer Linux, prefer Mac. I believe this poll expires in about a couple weeks, around August the 15th. I'll have links below in the show notes. But for this one, comments corner, this is where I comment on your comments. Specifically the video Ubuntu 14.04 review from a Windows user, me, who enjoys dual booting. Okay, Chris Patel. Hello, Chris. You say 8 gigabytes of RAM. Wait, what? Please provide evidence. I don't believe. Yeah, look, when it comes to any operating system, the more RAM you have, the better. You don't need 8 gigs to run Ubuntu with Unity, although Ubuntu Unity is not what I would call a lightweight Linux distro. Certainly 1 gig, maybe less than a gig, probably not. You want at least 2 gig, but if you do multitasking, resource intensive applications such as 3D games, VirtualBox, among other things, you're probably going to need all of that 8 gigabytes of RAM. In a standard Ubuntu Unity install, basic applications, internet, stuff like that, no, you certainly do not need 8 gigabytes of RAM. Heinrich N. Hello, Heinrich. And I guess he speaks English, German, and Magyar. Wow. Hi, everyone. Today I watched this video. Nice explanation of Ubuntu 14.04. Thank you, Heinrich. Let's see. It is not true we have to install the Compass Settings Manager. CCSM has much more functions, as only switch to minimize or maximize an application by clicking the starter icon. How to do? Yeah, I believe he has a terminal command here as an alternative to using the installing CCSM. Here is the the command here. This is fine. Not sure if I would post this for beginners. It's not difficult. I still prefer CCSM or Compass, but Heinrich, you are right. There is certainly more than one way to fine-tune or customize your Linux desktop, and thank you for posting this. Alright, Kront, Windows 7 rocks. Yep, it rocks, it rocks. The last Jin Yu, hello there. If you're using an old XP and have less than 1 gigabyte of RAM, try Ubuntu super fast with old PCs. I would have to agree, otherwise I go with Ubuntu. That's what I do with my main laptop and use my old PC with Ubuntu. Cool. Alright, we have a couple posts here from Star Lambert. Hello there. Let's see. Let me read this one. It's funny because I'm using 14.04. Using Ubuntu 14.04 after Windows XP Professional was somehow wiped clean from my hard drive. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You really should not be using an outdated operating system. Anyway, he says I had been using XP on this computer because when I bought it from eBay, May 2013, that's the OS that was installed in it. If I were to buy a used computer and an OS like Windows 7, I might as well have bought a new computer. No, but my computer was working fine until I don't know what I did. Okay. With most user-friendly Linux distributions, such as Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Zorin, normally when you go through the install process, there should be an option that says install alongside, Windows XP or Windows Vista, Windows 7, something like that. So you don't have to erase the entire hard drive. You can if you're fed up or don't need the original operating system. So you have a choice of either wipe out the hard drive, install alongside, or it might say do something else such as custom partitioning. It sounds like for whatever reason by mistake you wiped out the hard drive. In that case it was Windows XP, which should be wiped anyway. And I wrote it down, you're not supposed to be using Windows XP anyway, outdated, insecure, and unsupported. And by the way, anything that's outdated, any operating system, probably you should not be using it. Okay, Dexter2433, hello Dexter. Sucks, but you kind of have to treat Windows like a fragile egg. I don't know about that. If you want to keep it running smooth and efficient for the few must-have Windows programs, well, maintenance is a pain if that's what you mean, yes. But that list is getting very small these days. Also, Pixel has a lot real nice Linux videos. Yes, she does. I actually picked up a couple tips from one of her videos or a couple of videos years ago. Pixel does informative videos. Her name is Nicole, in case you're wondering. And Nixie, if you see this, let's do a podcast together. There's some more stuff here that Dexter says. Let's see. Linux have been playing Ubuntu for about 10 years, and 14.04 is very nice. Yes, it is. All right. Thank you for posting. Okay, Blagavest Penev. I hope I said that right, sir. Try Linux Mint 17 Cinnamon. It is a great Windows alternative. It certainly can be. I have used Windows for the last 10 years. After Windows 8, I switched to Linux Mint, and I don't think to return to Windows. Right. Wow, Windows 8 really ticked you off, huh? Okay, you really hate Windows 8 was my reply. I was with Win 8 for a year. Windows 7 was better for me. Changing the OS with better one doesn't mean that I hate the old one. Okay, and Linux is faster and more stable for me. Somebody wrote liar. Come on, be nice. By the way, there are many comments, and somebody posted a unfamily friendly comment. Shame on you. There are over 100 comments here, guys. I won't have time to read through all of these, and I apologize for that, but I'll go through as much as this as I can, and I thank you for all of your comments, by the way. Let's see, Gianfranco Rondon. Linux Mint is a great distro, but I see it more like an XP replacement rather than a Windows 8 one. Okay, a good choice for switching from Win 8 is Ubuntu from a former Windows user. Well, I certainly like Linux Mint, Gian. I prefer the Mate edition. That's my personal preference. Probably anything from Linux Mint is probably pretty good nowadays. DZ Madness. Hey there. I prefer Windows 8.1. It's quite cool. I would tend to agree. Yeah, I like it a lot, surprisingly so. This is from someone who cares. Well, I care too. I prefer Mint 17 KDE, but this looks nice except Unity. Yuck. Okay. Let's see. I agree the top bar needs to be changeable for sure. Yeah, it's not customizable. I can't stand Unity. It's just ugly. Well, I don't think it's ugly. I kind of miss the old GNOME 2 customizations options that you don't quite get in Unity. It's different, just like Windows 8 is different, and I've kind of gotten used to it. You mentioned install Cairo dock. I do like Cairo dock, actually, a very good dock. Okay, there's more here about, this is Ibrahim Productions, more about 8 gigabytes of RAM. Yeah, you really don't need 8 gig for basic stuff, but multitasking, graphics intensive, you know, VirtualBox applications and more RAM, the better. Stephen Randall, hello. Stephen, it was glitchy before I updated to the NVIDIA graphics driver, but now it's running smooth. Alright, I honestly am glad that it's not all shiny and awesome looking with all of the animations for the Windows menus, because last time it was like that it was just a hunk of bugs waiting to happen. Now it's stable and solid, and I can play Steam games on it and don't have to wait 10 minutes just to boot up like Windows 7. Oh, come on, it doesn't take 10 minutes. Anyway, he says, I'm happy with 14.04. So am I, Stephen. Xpron, he said, this review isn't from a Windows user. You dual boot, so you already have an idea of how Linux works. Yeah, I do remember reading this and replying. I didn't mean to confuse anyone. In fact, he wrote, sorry about the confusion. I meant that the title made it look like you don't have any experience. I've had... Yeah, TOS today, Total OS today, is mainly designed for beginners and more and beyond, as I say, not always. I did have a friend of mine who I posted a couple of videos of he was trying Linux Mint for the very first time as a true newbie, as it were. But yeah, I mean, when I do these videos, I dual boot, but primarily I do them from the perspective as a longtime Windows user who enjoys dual booting, and I meant no confusion whatsoever. Pittsburgh. Sorry. Hey, Pittsburgh. That guitar intro is plain awkward. You know what? It all depends what mood I'm in to use some animation. Some of you guys love it. Some of you guys, I guess, don't. No offense taken, no offense given. I do these at random, just whatever mood I am. That's, you know, whatever mood I am in. Don't take it any other way. It's just one of those things I do, and sometimes I don't. Okay, Stewie X, you do not need 8 GB of RAM. That's true. Most of the cases you may not, but once again, if you're running a lot of multitasking stuff, you may. I don't know. That depends. Up to you. You're right. A little less 2 GB of RAM is fine. It certainly can be. Great review. Well, thank you, Stewie. Okay, let's see. A couple more here. Joey Jojo Jr. Shabadoo Bababoo. Hello, Joey. I love that. Joey Jojo Jr. Shabadoo. I honestly don't know why Ubuntu is so popular. You know, Joey, I don't have a freaking clue either. No, I'm just kidding. Well, Ubuntu was my first try into the Linux world, as it were. Joey replies, Linux Smith was my first, and I thought it was pretty good. But the more I learned how to use Linux, the more I knew how it worked, the less I liked Mint and Ubuntu. Okay. How about a couple more, then we'll wrap this up here. Let's see. All right, Bart Williamson. For me, both Windows and Ubuntu work great nowadays. I never had serious issues with both of them. I did experience some app crashes, but you can argue if that's the OS's fault or the apps. Really, over the years, both Ubuntu and Windows improved. Likeness of crashing isn't a good way to determine if an OS is better. I factor everything into an OS, whether it's good, and not just Linux, by the way. That goes for Windows. You know, how fast is a boot, how many times it crashes, if it crashes, the quality of the apps, any surprises, freezes. You know, with Windows is the blue screen of that's with Ubuntu or Linux, I guess it's the black screens if you want to call it. But I factor everything when I do a discussion or a review of Linux or Windows for that matter. Okay, one more. I see Ronos. Hey there. My major issue with Unity is the lack of customization options. Okay. In 14.04 they removed the ability to move the close, minimize, and maximize buttons to the right. Sure, it's easy to adjust, but it's still annoying that they removed it. I totally agree. In fact, one of the first videos I did for 14.04 was Ubuntu Linux full install. I'm annoyed. It was the buttons thing. You know, it's not a deal breaker for me, but I kind of wish that was in there. All right, many more comments. Thank you, by the way, for all of your comments and replies and suggestions. It is greatly appreciated. That's it for this one. I will have an important announcement here coming up concerning an Indiegogo project of mine that has not gone live yet. It'll be trying to fulfill the Mac requests of the past and give Mac some love, as it were. I'll have an announcement here hopefully the next 2 or 3 days or so if you would like to be part of that project and maybe have a chance to have a private podcast with me or a Google Hangout. You will certainly have the opportunity to, if you would like to support that Indiegogo project. But for now, thank you so much for watching and listening, and as always, I will catch all of you sometime in the future.